do we need chemicals on our crops, or can we grow as effectively with organic farming?
Well, I can start this anyway. Yeah. Well, we definitely do not need chemicals on our food supply and our produce, and of course it was done for centuries without any chemicals. We already know that, so that if that's the best proof that you could possibly want. You know, we also don't need chemicals to feed a starving world, because as study after study shows, we have more than enough food to feed the planet right now on a caloric basis, a protein basis. You know, the issue is distribution and access to all different kinds of factors: land, market, credit, water, all those pieces. So we absolutely do not. Study after study has also shown that organic production can be done quite effectively and efficiently on a per acre basis. It can be at least as productive, if not more productive than, I will not call it conventional, I'll call it non-organic industrial agriculture. Agroecology as well, which goes beyond organic to include various very time-tested methods of treatment of soil, organic treatment of soil, but also diversified crop rotations is another area where, like, people do intercropping and other things that produce incredible amounts of food on small plots of land. So it's more than possible.
Do we need chemicals? I think when you ask that question, my immediate response is, why don't we step back just one step and take a look at why are we in the situation where we're asking that question? As Chris just alluded to, when you have intercropping systems and polyculture systems, mixed crops, small crops and rotational crop systems, one of the things that's included in those systems is the rest, not all of the biodiversity, but a great deal of other biodiversity is also present, and a lot of that biodiversity includes beneficial insects and beneficial organisms, and they tend to have a top-down effect on pest problems. That is, they are the controllers of the pest problems. And so when we take a look at a situation where we feel the need to apply chemicals, apparently we're in a situation where something has been lost from that system that has allowed one of the elements of the system to get out of control. Typically, it's a predator is missing, and so I think it's worthwhile to step back and say, if you're asking that question, there are some other questions you also need to ask in that situation. And that is, what have you done with the other organisms that were part of this system that were helping you up to this point? Something must have happened. Now, aside from that, if you do find yourself in that situation where you're considering using a technological tool to deal with a biological problem, you also have to acknowledge the fact that this has to be a temporary remedy, because technological tools don't last very long. They always fail, because biological systems will always overcome them. And so at best, if you're going to use chemicals, you have to have it in your mind that this has to be a temporary solution, because if you start relying on technological tools as your answer to these problems, you get on that treadmill and you can't get off, because you start doing increasing amounts of damage to the environment, and then it gets to the point where it cannot respond when you need it to respond, and it can't recover easily when you want it to recover.
It's often said that only the people in the rich countries can afford organic, but in fact, of course, people in the developing world, until very recently, were growing most of their food organically as well. I interviewed a woman who was a small farmer, size of an average backyard here kind of farm, and she had 30 different varieties in her little plot of land, enough to feed her and her family, and sometimes sell to others. Her plot of land, which was part of a study done, was more productive in terms of the total volume of food that she produced. It was also more resilient when it was too dry and too hot, where other farmers were in trouble. She was doing fine. One of her crops, she had different types. She says, this one likes the heat. This one, likes it when it's cooler. So I plant both, just in case. So that type of agriculture is a lot more resilient to conditions that change, as we are seeing more and more often with climate change. The technological solution we've taken, which is a sort of a simplistic approach with monocultures, is much more vulnerable to these changes. So the difference really is organic is a knowledge-intensive form of farming. You have to know more about your land, you have to know more about the ecology, you have to understand plants and insects. And that's something we've lost, and we need to get it back, and we have to support those who are struggling, because it's often very difficult to learn this information. Many universities don't even teach organic agriculture. So, thanks.